round?
Nah, we're good. Broncos, Bronco land, Broncos country. How's it going? Been a little while since I've talked Denver Broncos, and it's been a little while since I've talked to my good friend Jon Kronenberg. I think probably maybe the last time we spent some extensive time talking. Man, it might have been going to the CU USC game, but how are you doing, man? It's great to see you.
It's been a while, man, but you guys have been doing a great job. I love seeing you grow, and I love your CU buff perspective. It's different than some other people. I love that you're really enthusiastic, those kind of things. So it's been good seeing you, and honestly, I'm excited to talk some Broncos. But real quick, let me ask you a quick question. If you saw an alternative helmet for next year, would you be up for the 66 helmet?
Dude,
I
why
love
not?
this logo. Yes, right?
Dude, why not, man? I'm not super picky as long as it's not the ones that were before that, right? The ones that we wore with Kyle Orton. Those ones were so bad. The brown ones.
Hey, I loved what Jabbar Gaffney did, though, if you remember with those, when he kind of twisted. They all made something that, made it feel good still. So I love that.
Man, that's great. But yeah, man, it's I appreciate the kind words and trying to get out here talking the Broncos a little bit more. I'm kind of standing for those, if you have ADHD, get yourself a standing, adjusting desk because I want to stand right now. So I'm going to stand here in the corner of my bedroom. But I mean, let's chat. Broncos wrapped up their season yesterday, finished 8-9.
Yep.
Give me your initial impressions. I mean, I've heard everything from, I'm very happy. I love this to listen to the radio yesterday. Somebody was saying, hey, bring in Malik Willis as the next franchise quarterback. So
I don't know what's going on there.
Thoughts.
I don't know who was saying that. That's very interesting perspective. To be honest, I think we spoke at Broncos training camp a little bit, and I told you I was very concerned about the team. I really thought that this team was going to be a 4-win, 5-win team. So for me, this blew my expectations out of the water, honestly. So I'm very happy with what happened in the season. I see a lot of potential with some of these players, obviously, but I'm also concerned about some of the cap and the issues that have led to basically what Russell Wilson being told he's going to be let go, so looking forward to seeing some of these guys develop, but at the same time, I have a lot of concerns with this team. I feel like they can upgrade almost at every position, essentially. Do you see any position where they can't upgrade in the future?
No, man, it's honestly kind of similar to my takes with CU, which is like, hey, this was a step in the right direction. Similarly, guys, we haven't had an 8-win season with the Broncos in a very long time. The last time we had this many wins, it was 9-7. Gary Kubiak's last year in 2016. So 3-game improvement. I mean, Nathaniel Hackett.
Good luck, Jets. Whatever you're doing.
Title. What did you expect? Honestly, what did you expect with the work that has to be done with this team? I'm pleasantly surprised. I was thinking maybe 5-6 wins at the beginning.
So we were in
the
the same kind of perspective of that. When we went to camp, did we see the Tim Patrick injury, or did I go a different day when I saw that?
That was a different day.
That was a different day. Okay. But when we went, I didn't see it with the team multiple times. So it's one of those things where I'm very glad that I saw this team actually develop and be able to use a little bit more. I understand it feels like Sean Payton was hindered his offense by Russell Wilson. I also understand that he may not use that same system next year because essentially, he may have not liked it, what he did as well, Sean Payton. So look, I'm not saying that Sean Payton was a bad hire. I know some people have those takes out there. He's someone, again, actually trade and hire, but some people very against him already. It's so interesting how it turns on a dime. It's just, when they have that great run, everyone's loving Wilson, everyone's loving Sean Payton, feel like they're connecting together. All of a sudden, there's a few losses, the chances of a playoffs go away. They don't feel like they have an opportunity, and then everyone turns on everyone. It felt like it was just a crazy couple weeks there.
It was a crazy couple weeks. No Bronco season is complete without any sort of drama, and we had that this year. And I want to say, I came out here, John, thinking that, man, we weren't a playoff team. But then you know how I am. I ride that emotional wave with the team. We go on that
Yes.
5-game winning streak, baby. Russell Wilson's a franchise quarterback. We're going to the playoffs, baby. And, obviously that's not how things turned out. But I will say, this was a great Broncos season for me
Mhm.
because I've been right. I mean, after last season, man, I was almost at the point of feeling apathetic about, this is my
Yes.
ride and die team, man. This is a team that coming out of the womb, I've been a Broncos fan.
Right.
And this season made me care again. I'm just going to be
That
straight
that's
up
that's
honest.
that is huge because, I felt like I was feeling the same kind of thing. Am I apathetic towards this team? I lost a player, a player that I'm very close to in Graham Glasgow. I didn't lose him. I mean, he got let go by Sean Payton, and
Yeah, he's
then,
still alive.
yes,
So,
and he's doing very well with the Lions starting there, so I'm very happy for him. But for me, I almost felt like, hey, that's like part of me leaving because I felt connected with the team through him. So for me, it was a little apathetic going into this season.
mhm.
But like you said, there were some good wins there. I was very happy to finally beat the Chiefs.
Oh,
I think,
yeah.
and again, I was talking to some players in the past when they said we should have beat the Chiefs those a few times. They felt like they had the Chiefs a few times, and so they were very angry with themselves that they didn't finish out those games because they felt like they had that potential. Obviously, maybe coaching came into a factor there, maybe timeouts. I don't know. I can't quite remember a few years. It's been a long time with the Chiefs, so that
Mhm.
was a huge thing for the Broncos. Loved that.
Yes. And yeah, like again, I don't know realistically. Yes, we do see rookie head coaches sometimes. We see turnarounds like you've seen with the Texans. Okay, like that happens. We were very close. We were just if Russell Wilson could have just outplayed Bailey Zappi, who knows where we're
Right.
at this week? But at the end of the day, that didn't happen. But let's talk about some grades.
Okay.
That's been a big thing with how I've talked about CU, Coach Prime, all that. I mean, what what grade would you give Sean Payton and this organization right now on
Sean
this
Payton,
year?
if are we going overall for the Broncos or just Sean Payton specifically?
Let's break it down. Let's start with Sean Payton, and
Sean
then we'll get to
Payton.
the rest of the
All
organization.
right, I have to separate the trade, what we had to give up or give
Yeah.
away to get him. I think that's completely separate. The owners needed a coach to kind of take over, feel comfortable with. For me, honestly, it's a B grade. I think with what he was given, I do want to know, how involved he was with some of these signings. Some of these signings like Ben Powers, who I was so disappointed with this year. I really, he did great things with the Ravens, but he just kind of had those slow feet going. So I do want to hear, a little bit. If I knew a little bit more about who was involved with those signing of players, I think that grade could change, obviously, to a C actually, because some of those guys just really were not, the
Yeah,
best for
Mike
me.
McGlinchey, man.
And again, with him, you hope that you can convert some of his signing into signing bonus, help you with the cap a little bit. You're gonna need to do that with some of these players. Again, same with Sutton. You hope to do, or you have to trade away some of these guys. Do you trade away Garrett Bowles for a fourth round pick, essentially? Something like that, because I don't expect to get the best value for these players at this time, especially after the year that happened.
Yeah, yeah. No doubt, no doubt. And I think again, um, probably what your expectation was coming in affects, the overall grade of what
Yeah,
you're giving
I w
Sean Payton. But
right, because
yeah,
I felt, I was a negative Nancy. You knew that. You had to know that when we were at camp. I was just like, I don't see it in this team anywhere. I was again that was when I was at the bottom of 3 to 4 wins, I was thinking, honestly. So for me, I was so pleasantly surprised with what he was able to do. That's why maybe the grade's a little bit higher. What was your grade for Sean Payton?
my grade for Sean Payton. Well, before I get to that, I will say, Bodie, thank you for the super chat. We're going to get to that here in just a bit
Ooh,
after we get through
yes.
the grades portion, and we look forward to the future. So I just want to let you know, not forgetting about you.
That's gonna be a great segue for something.
Yes, yes. But I would give him right now probably it's teetering on a B minus to a B. I thought, again, when you have a 3-game improvement, that's nice. I think that's great. There were some games, again, that I feel like when you have a coach that I want to compare Sean Payton to guys like Andy Reid, to Mike Shanahan, to Bill Belichick, like Bill Parcells, the greats, right?
Mm-hmm.
Should this team have been a winning team? I think that's a fair criticism. Like,
Yes.
should our coaching have gotten us a few more of these close wins?
Yeah.
And
Especially at home,
yeah,
especially when you're
yeah,
at home.
we're terrible at home, man. We lose to the Commanders. They have
Oh,
a basketball guy now leading their coaching search.
exactly,
Doesn't make any
exactly.
sense, man. We
They
lost
don't
to
even
the
know what they're
Jets.
they don't
Man,
even know what they're doing with their name, honestly. They're still considering it, do we really wanna keep the Commander's name? Honestly, so very interesting stuff in Washington, another kind of day, but yes, you can't
yeah,
lose to those teams where you're supposed to win, and that's one of
yes,
those things that, did Sean Payton feel like it came down to execution from the players? Where did that come from? He has to take some of the blame there. I agree with you because you gotta beat those teams. That's how you
yes.
get into the playoffs.
Yes, and when you take a year off, I know this might sound like me defending I guess I am defending Sean Payton, but anytime you take
Mhm.
a year off and there's gonna be some bumps of the road and getting back into the swing of things, and I think
Yeah,
that, oh, man, what was I gonna say? Like, when he like, when was this with the Jets game? I can't remember when he called the timeout before he punted it at the end of the first half, and then the other team ends
mm,
up scoring. Like, there were a few of those kind of head scratching decisions,
yes.
but also I think Broncos country, Broncos fans, Bronco land. I mean, let's be honest, man. We think too highly of a lot of our own players,
Yeah,
and I think that this roster. Was it kind of more of a 5-win roster to start out the season if you take
mhm.
away the head coach? Are you saying that this team, essentially the same team that we had last year, plus or minus a few guys, is it really any different, much different than the 5-win team we had last year in 2022?
Not the same. This is essentially the same makeup of the team, essentially, in my opinion.
Yeah. Yeah. So, hey, make of that what you want. But overall, I am pleasantly surprised with how the season turned
Sean,
out.
yeah, with Sean Payton, yes, I
I
agree. I
Let's
think
get
they.
into talking. Oh, go ahead, John.
No, go ahead. No, go ahead.
Well,
Let's do
I
some
was
other
going to
grades.
change it up a little bit, talking a little bit about just Russell Wilson, man.
Yeah.
What were your expectations for him coming into the year? And how did you feel about how this whole benching, the contract stuff, all this, how it was all hashed out? Then I'll give you my take on it.
Yeah, when it came to Russell Wilson, I was honestly quite concerned with him this year. I didn't really see him going to be someone who was going to take this team to the next level. I felt like we were kind of in a bad situation. We knew where we were with that situation. I was hoping Sean Payton could, kind of retailer that for Russell Wilson. But when it came to him, honestly, it felt like he had mistakes going on. He missed opportunities. There was guys open, and he just
Oh,
didn't he just kind of held on to the ball. Again, he didn't let his offensive line actually, when they did make a pocket, he never stayed in. He felt like he was still uncomfortable trying to run around. Again, if you have a pocket, step up when those guys come at the edge, and you have that pocket, and just step up and make the throw. And he was just running around like a chicken with his head cut off. So there
yeah.
was times where I felt like, man, it's one of those things where he was setting up his offensive line to not know where he was. So all of a sudden, his offensive line is confused, saying, "Well, am I going to hold this guy all of a sudden because he's going to run around? Then it looks like holding because you got to grab the chest plate a
Yeah.
little bit as an offensive lineman. So that leads to holding penalties. It just felt like he was doing things that was not going to help the team win. He was, just trying to play a little bit too much hero ball, a little bit too much, backyard ball. Do you agree with that and felt like that?
Yeah. I was, I guess, coming into the season, even though I didn't think we'd get a lot of wins,
Mhm.
I thought that we would see better play from Russell Wilson. And I think in terms of more, even just more yardage, like I still thought that we would pass it more. Looking at it, I think Sean Payton really simplified what he wanted to do. He did not. I think he learned quickly after those first few games that he wasn't going to win games being pass happy. And even though Russell Wilson is another shorter quarterback, I may add than Drew Brees. Drew Brees, man, he plays from the pocket. He has amazing pocket presence. He's able to get the ball out quickly, and like those things that you pointed out, when you're able to step up in the pocket, navigate the pocket, understand where you're going with the ball immediately, you're able to make your offensive line look better. And I think, hey, we've seen this with Russell Wilson the past couple of years. I mean, when you're playing kind of off script, when you're extending plays, that opens up the opportunity for more holding penalties and, mistakes to happen. And I think as time went on, we just realized that, hey, this wasn't the right fit. I think Sean Payton probably gave it his best shot to an extent, but I think if Sean Payton, if he was going to tank this thing, man, he would have kept passing the ball 35 times a game with Russell Wilson. But you saw him switch it up in an attempt to win, and we played a lot more competitively outside of Detroit. Outside of that Detroit game.
But I did expect actually more
season.
running. I did expect more running game. I thought that, with the signings at the offensive line, those wider body offensive linemen that he likes, I thought it was going to be a more power running. He was going to use those guys a little bit more. But even when it came to the running game, it felt like there was some lackluster, play. Was Javonte Williams really at, 100%? I don't know, but it didn't feel like that 35th pick overall kind of player that you draft and traded up for. I know that wasn't Sean Payton's, obviously his kind of reasons, but and right here, Drew Brees is a Hall of Famer. Let's be honest, he is a Hall of Famer. And again, like we were talking about, he used that pocket. He stepped up, even though he was shorter. He knew how to see those lanes. He knew where to go. He trusted his offensive line. His offensive line trusted him. It makes everyone get better. It's team ball versus, we're talking about Russell Wilson. It was more of a team atmosphere when it came to the Saints at that time. You had wide receivers that were doing different concepts and really being able to spread the, different kind of concepts for Sean Payton to use, crossing routes all the way up to, go routes that they could get big plays from.
And yeah, I think at the end of the day, we had seen enough between this past year, Russell trying to play a little bit more in the pocket, and this year, Sean Payton trying to do his best. And I think it's the right decision. Kind of how his contract was structured was you needed to make this decision right now, or you were with him for another 2 years. And
essentially, 2 years, essentially. That would have been the if you wanted to get out perfectly and have it be easy, it would have been 2 more years. And look, I don't see Sean Payton wanting to be passive and wait that long. He probably wants to get this team where he wants in 5 years. I assume he has a 5-year plan going on right now. He knows what they're going to do. That's what they're going to do once they get back after their break, make that 5-year plan. At least that's what I'm hoping they're going to be doing.
Yeah. And this is the time to make that move. Yes, it's a bad cap hit with dead money over the next couple of years, but you can kind of offset that if we do decide to go with maybe a cheap bridge quarterback option for a year or two or part of next year, and then with a rookie quarterback, you're kind of able to offset that. And I guess before we start looking forward in terms of what moves you'd like to see the team make, what are some things to consider? I would just love to hear your recap. How will you remember the Russell Wilson era here with the Denver Broncos?
I'm going to remember it as one where I was very cautious. I wasn't quite sure if I believed in it. For me, it's just a time. It honestly was the apathetic time in my Broncos career. I think, like you said earlier, that described it very well. That this was my apathetic Russell Wilson period. I feel like going into next year, knowing that it feels like there's a direction where I can see the team getting better. Honestly, that's just it's good. It's good to have that feel.
Yes.
How would you describe this and remember the Russell Wilson era?
Just unmet expectations. We thought that he would be the next, the third best quarterback of all time with this franchise, right behind Elway and Manning. And really what we got was a quarterback that honestly still ended up with less accolades than Tim Tebow did. So
yeah,
highly disappointing. It probably goes down as the worst trade in franchise history, and if not NFL history,
yep.
for that matter. And it's just, it is a shame, but I mean, we have to look forward. And Sean Payton, I think it's clear the ownership is all in on Sean Payton. The ownership, the Walton Penner Group, the family, they did not purchase the Broncos until after Russell Wilson
I think
was
that,
traded here.
that really was something where Joe Ellis wanted a quarterback to be here to help sell the franchise. That was a part of the reasoning why this happened.
Yeah.
You're trying to sell the franchise, make it look like very appetizing. It felt like a team that you could plug in and all of a sudden you could win immediately.
Yes.
So I understand that's where, the expectations were. And that's one reason why, I think George Payton isn't on the hot seat is because he had to listen to what was going on from above. And essentially that, right now, it's now kind of in Sean Payton's hands. So I think George Payton is also safe.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. And I don't really have much of an issue about that. I feel like obviously Sean Payton, this is going to be his thing, his control. So, hey, if he trusts Payton's talent evaluation, let's see how it goes another year. But yeah, I think he's going to have time. I know our friend Chubby's in here, Steelers fan. And guys, I'm going to say this, man, like the Steelers have, in
They
my
snuck
opinion,
in. They snuck in,
they
man.
snuck in,
Ooh.
and I feel like they substantially have a better roster than where Denver's at right now. The fact that we're still kind of in striking distance.
And again, they don't have a quarterback where you can say, man, that's the guy, but they were still able to make the playoffs. They were
Yes.
able to survive through that as a team, do different team kind of aspects, team wins. I love that from the Steelers compared to, again, the Broncos, which felt like we're doing just not working as a team.
Yeah, no doubt.
It just felt like
And
they, again, when it comes to the offensive line, I think I've told you this. I want these guys to be 5-1, essentially. They all know each other. They all know what the next move is going to come.
mhm.
I really want to see more of that coming in the future. We'll see what happens with the offensive line. We want some guys to restructure, those kind of things.
Well, speaking of the offensive line, let's get right into it. We talk about this all the time. A quarterback can help their offensive line look better. Peyton Manning always did that with kind of probably average talented their talent level offensive lines. And then there are quarterbacks that just make their offensive line look even worse. We've seen a handful of that over the last 7 years. But let's get to Bodie's super chat again. Really
Let's do
appreciate
it.
the $10. He says,
Thank you.
they're saying that Denver will have to trade up to get a top quarterback. Otherwise, they will have to wait. But they keep saying Bo Nix should still be. Maybe you meant undrafted.
Yeah, he's not being drafted by the Broncos pick. Yeah.
And let me just say this. I would love to hear your answer first, John. But to put this in context, guys, Sean Payton has a big job ahead of him because we're essentially in a rebuild. We're starting over. We have 6 draft picks. We don't have a second round draft pick because of the Sean Payton trade, which in my opinion, it's totally worth it. We needed somebody that was competent in here.
Yes.
And we're also missing a 7th round draft pick for whatever reason. I don't care.
There was a swap last year.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, it was fine.
But we got 6 picks, and it is hard to rebuild, acquire picks, and also, get a top quarterback in the draft with where we're sticking at right now at sitting at with pick 12. What are your thoughts about the quarterback options for Denver right now? And
the Broncos,
Bo Nix.
Yeah, the Broncos cannot trade up, obviously, in my opinion. You can try to get rid of some players, but everyone knows that the Broncos otherwise would probably release those players that they're trying to trade or restructure. So they would want those same kind of things done already, or have it set in deals. I just don't see the Broncos getting enough picks, even if they were to trade away guys like Garrett Bowles, Jerry Jeudy, and acquire I feel like fourth round picks and stuff like that. That's not enough to get you going up higher to get one of those top tier quarterbacks. I think you'll see some team try to trade up early and get Daniels as well. So I think there's going to be a run on quarterbacks. I think this is where you're in the McCarthy, those kind of range. But when it comes to Bo Nix, I'm so glad that he's in the Senior Bowl. For me, this is a huge kind of aspect where I love the Senior Bowl practices. You get to, NFL coaches are getting their hands on this player. They're making them do things that are in the NFL. That it's no longer doing. They're actually under center. Those kind of things where they're no longer looking at on the sideline, being told the play really just kind of looking there on their play sheet. It's really going to push these teams. So for Bo Nix, Senior Bowl, everyone have your eyes on the Senior Bowl, because you got some great guys in there like Pratt and those different kind of options for the Broncos. But when it comes to Bo Nix, I see the Broncos wanting to invest in him possibly. He's a guy who, again, it comes down to Sean Payton if he feels like he wants a quarterback that's more mobile. Again, that's up to him if he wants that mobility versus maybe a guy who stays in the pocket where he's accustomed to. But for me, Bo Nix is definitely an option. I think he goes in the first round, of course, because you want that fifth-year option with these young quarterbacks. You want these guys in cost-controlled situations. That's why you have such such an opportunity when these guys can develop into their second year. All of a sudden, you're having your team be get into the playoffs, being a little bit further by the time they're in their fifth-year deal. Maybe you're in the Super Bowl. Maybe you're making those kind of strides. So Bo Nix, again, if you want to develop him, I think that'd be, honestly, I'd be okay with that. Is it a little rich at 12 for me? Yeah, it's a little rich for me at 12, though. Would you agree?
Yes. There are some guys, I guess I'll name them off the top of my mind right now. Guys
Yeah.
like Bo Nix, I'll get to it. Michael Penix, JJ McCarthy, that's kind of more in our range right now. And I feel like, hey, doing what the Ravens did, but kind of opposite. They traded back into the first round to draft Lamar Jackson to get that fifth-year option at like pick 31 or pick 32. I forget what it was, but I like that strategy as well. The one thing that could happen where we're able to acquire picks and get that quarterback is if we're able to trade back to, let's say, pick 30, acquire some substantial picks for this year and next year. And hey, maybe a guy like Bo Nix, JJ McCarthy, Cam Ward is right there. Maybe Michael Penix, slides because of his medicals. I'm not really sure, but I think that would be the ideal scenario. You can get one of those guys that Sean Payton feels like fits his system, and trade back and acquire picks. But I think that's probably a lot easier said than done. It's probably going to be one or the other, where you're going up to get a quarterback and just punting on this year's draft, and then moving forward. What I just don't want to see is us sacrifice any more high-end draft capital for the future. I'm done with it. We can't be in a spot like the Carolina Panthers are in right now.
Yeah, we can't do that. And again, when it comes to, like, you're talking about Penix and all those guys, I'm so excited the Senior Bowl that they were able to do that and get them in there. That's where I would have loved to see Cam Ward as well, because again, we've talked about a little bit off camera. I had some concerns with his height, but again, that's just something that is it something that Coach Payton is comfortable with? Because it says 6'3" when people are talking about him, but I think he's more close to 6'1 3/4" maybe. So we'll see.
Yeah, you always get all these different discrepancies with the
Yes.
college measurements. And in terms of, I'll wrap this up on Bo Nix, then we'll get to Chubby's question here.
Yes.
Thank you. But yeah, with Bo Nix, I agree with you. The Senior Bowl is going to be very important for him because he needs to prove me wrong. With all those other quarterbacks that I listed, I would probably want Cam Ward, JJ McCarthy,
Ooh, so
Michael
you would take
Penix.
Ward over him. That's very interesting.
I like his big play potential.
Yeah.
I would probably take them over Bo Nix.
Yeah.
That's just
I agree with you. I mean, it's just, again, if you're saying that it would have to be Sean Payton's guy, it would have to be
yes.
one of those things. It's his guy, and if I don't see that from any of these players, then you wait till next year and you see if you can get Sanders, maybe.
Hey, and I'm okay with that. We'll get to that here shortly. But
Let's get to this comment.
but I did want to say also about Bo Nix.
Yes.
Right now, I feel like Bo Nix is a great fit if Sean Payton's wanting to run the same Russell Wilson offense.
That's such a good point. I mean, essentially, but again, you'd have to say that you believe in his ability to make some of
Right.
those throws differently.
We got
But
to see it.
I agree. That's why you have to have this Senior Bowl practice. Again, I don't care about the game. I think everyone knows that.
Yeah.
No one cares about the game. All the media that goes there, they leave before the game and try to get out of there as fast as they can in Mobile, honestly.
Yes.
But it's one of those things where this is where we'll see if they help their stock. Again, Penix is in the Senior Bowl as well. So we're going to see a lot of different things. And then when you get to the combine, we'll see those medicals, know if there's anything to be really concerned about. Because again, it's amazing what medical can do now in terms of getting you well and being safe and being able to play still.
Yes, absolutely. And speaking of medicals, let's get to Chubby's question again. Thank you so much for the $2 super chat. Y'all go check him out. But yeah, do you like Michael Penix or Caleb Williams? I guess right now it all depends on kind of how are you getting them. Okay. I don't like the idea of trading up from 12 to go get Michael Penix right now. Could that change if everything checks out? But I'm okay. I think I can get behind taking him at 12. Now,
and I think you can get him at 12.
Yeah.
I think you can get him there.
Yes, or trading back. That's the ideal scenario.
Yes, it is.
Trade back.
So great. It is and again, I hate to say this, but was Moss, really worth that trading away the 3rd round pick? We'll have to see that. It's another guy where you need a hit on that for next year for that defensive back group.
Yeah. And again, we can't afford to be sacrificing more and more high-end draft capital. I mean, this is the first round draft pick we've had in like 3 drafts, 4 drafts.
It's going to be fun to have a first round, man.
Yeah, it's great. Now, in terms of Caleb Williams, I don't really see that as a realistic option. Same with Drake Maye. And I've even been seeing like a Walter Football put out their newest mock today. They have Jayden Daniels going number 3 to New England. So
I'm seeing him in the top 5 as well. People are saying top 10. I understand that, again, I saw so much of the ASU tape where he's been a different guy since he went to LSU. So I have to kind of redo my mind a little bit when it comes to that as well, personally.
Yeah.
But I don't think Caleb Williams is realistic. I think he's going to go in the number 1 or 2. That's how it usually goes with these quarterbacks when they're wanted there, because it's so important. Again, like we talked about, that 5-year window with these guys where they're cheap. Go ahead.
And I feel like what it would take if we're wanting to just save some of our future draft capital for the first time in a while. People are saying, can Patrick Surtain get you up there? I don't even think it can, because he's due for a massive contract extension soon.
Exactly. It's one of those things where I remember when Bailey came over here, and it's one of those things where the Broncos wanted to make sure a deal was done first, and it was much different because he had to have that deal. You also traded the Washington Redskins also had to trade away a 2nd round pick, because again, that deal was so massive that you have to give Champ Bailey make him one of the top paid cornerback. That's the same thing that you're going to have to do, and teams know that, and it's not as easy. Again, it's easy to give away a 1st round pick, but not a top pick. Again, these players cost controlled mean so much to these teams. Cost controlled players. It is how you win now.
Yes. And that's why it might just take a collection. And I'm not really sure. I don't know how we get there, because even a guy like Jerry Jeudy coming into the last year of his contract, I think he's due somewhere between 15 and $20 million. I forget exactly what the number is, but I mean, where would you value him in terms of a draft pick wise, because he is due for a contract extension coming up soon, and he has underperformed immensely. He was supposed to be our wide receiver 1 coming in here, and at best he's maybe been a number 2 option, mainly because Tim Patrick hasn't been on the field. I'm thinking he's maybe worth kind of a 5th round pick right now.
Yeah, 4th, 5th round is what I'm also hearing as well. It just feels like that's where teams are going, essentially, because again, you either have to pay him or it's a 1-year rental. And, so if your team trying to get over the hump, that's great. You can get a 1-year rental with someone, try to see if you can help him stop, dancing around with his footwork and actually just make some cuts and go. But again, for him, it just hasn't been a good situation. Is he just a jag, and just another guy essentially? It
Yeah.
feels like that, at least in Denver. He is just a jag.
Yeah. Yeah. And yeah. So let's move forward. Let's
Yes.
let's take a little bit of a greater look at maybe even multiple years down the road, right now with how you look at our contract situations, with our salary cap, how the team is currently structured, the 6 draft picks that we have right now. Is this a year, man, where we really are just do we punt quarterback this year? I know a lot of people won't like to hear that, but with where we're at right now, is it best to just people won't want to hear this, but bring in a bridge guy such as
Yeah.
Jameis Winston or somebody else, or some people brought up Kirk Cousins. I think he's going
Too
to price
expensive.
himself out. Yeah,
Yeah, you
of
can't
all
you
that.
can't. I would love Cousins here. I would actually
Yeah,
love that. I think that he would do well with Sean Payton. I think they'd have good connection. I think he could work with the wide receivers well. He's done well with wide receivers in the past that, aren't essentially, superstars. Obviously, he has had a few with Stephon Diggs and Jefferson. But again, it's one of those things, man. I just feel like I wish, but can't. It's not realistic at all.
yeah, yeah. And I think regardless, I would like
I
to
think
see
this
a
is going to
bridge
be a punch.
quarterback brought in.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
I think this is kind of a punchier,
Yeah.
essentially. You need someone to bridge that over. You can't have a quarterback be ready essentially as a rookie. I feel like with this roster at this time at least, with who the Broncos may be taking in that 12 range, or again if they trade back, we'll have to see. And again, for me, this is a way to acquire players, in the draft. So when you do get that quarterback next year, let's say, he has somewhere to go to. You have something to build off of, and you're not worried about these contracts that are so bad. And just again, you have a lot of contracts that you're going to have to restructure and eat on some of these guys.
Yeah, and I know a lot of people probably won't like to hear this strategy because it's playing the long game. The Broncos haven't made the playoffs since 2015 when they won the Super Bowl and all of that. But I'm trying to look at, okay, we have, again, similar to CU, we need players at literally every position right now.
Right.
We have one of the most expensive offensive lines in the NFL right now, and we still need more offensive linemen. So
Yeah. I
I'm
mean,
wondering,
Cushionberry, I don't know if they can retain him even with his price tag, honestly. He had a solid year, probably his best year, but again, for me, he probably priced himself out of the Broncos range. A lot of
yeah,
these guys, is Mike Purcell gone essentially because he's priced himself out. Some of these guys want to stay here. They're saying, again, Purcell, he grew up in Denver. He's a Denver guy.
yeah.
Grew up here in Colorado. So he's a Colorado kid and he wants to stay here, but can we do that? Can we keep a DJ Jones? Those nose tackles, those guys that are in there for maybe 50% of the plays or something like that. Can you really afford to pay that kind of money for those guys right now? After you have to kind of eat it this year and punt, and again, hope to develop some young undrafted guys. Hope to develop some of the guys from the previous drafts. Hope Riley Moss can be opposite of Patrick Surtain. Those different kind of things where you have to get upgrades there.
Yeah, no doubt. And I think based off of the performance that we saw the last 2 weeks, we essentially got the same offensive output that we got from Russell Wilson for most of the year with Jarrett Stidham. I know he's under contract, I think for about $5 million next year.
Yeah.
Right now, I do not feel comfortable with having him as a bridge quarterback. I think after this last,
I think he's still a good
yeah,
backup. I think his price is fine to keep him on. But you want someone else who's, like you said, a Jameis Winston, someone who just fits this kind of, who's been with just someone a little bit different. I'm tired
yeah.
of. I want someone who's going to be a pocket passer, who's going to use his offensive line correctly. Hopefully, help fix that line in some sense if they can't restructure those guys and or if they have to trade some away. Because again, I don't know what's going to happen with Garrett Bowles even. So very very interested to see what happens there too.
Yeah, yeah. But if it works out in our favor to where, hey, we're able to land a Cam Ward in the 3rd round, okay?
Mhm.
We bring in Jameis Winston for half the year, something like that. Then we want to see what we got in Cam Ward. I'm totally cool with that. But I think like right now, the idea again, signing somebody like Jameis Winston, hell, even honestly, I don't know. Jimmy Garoppolo might price himself out too much too,
I
but
don't know. I don't know. But again, if you
yeah,
need, those are some of the names where you have to go with for a year, and just again, if you can't find that, again, even if you draft a quarterback, you don't want to throw them out there in the wolves essentially with that kind of setup. Maybe it's week 10, you finally
no.
put them in, those kind of things, unless they shine in training camp and they really shine for you in all those different camps, essentially mini camp all the way on.
Yeah, and I think, man, what was I gonna say? Oh, that if you trade back, if you decide, you know what, I'm not gonna spend a first or second round pick on a quarterback if I trade back, and I mean there are if we're wanting to actually get good cheap receivers, there are tons of receivers available in this
Yes.
draft. There are tons of really good defensive linemen. I mean, Devontae Sweat from Texas is a guy that we could get still
Yes, I'd
probably trading back.
Yeah, I'd love him in the second round if you can trade back, get an extra pick, especially if he lost some weight. Imagine how destructive he would be,
Yeah.
honestly, if he lost some weight. Then all of a sudden you have the interior pass rush coming in. I think that's something that teams would want to do with him, especially. Or you can, have him be that same kind of guy, and then all of a sudden he's a dominant force for your nose tackle. You get rid of DJ Jones, you move on from Mike Purcell just because of cap reasons. Then you have a cheap guy who can really dominate with his body, as we've seen in the past with Texas. So
Yeah,
that's a great fit.
yeah, and I'm just trying to imagine. I'm like, well, this next year, okay, like say we can trade back and grab a defensive lineman like that, as well as somebody like Xavier Worthy or that
Mhm.
guy over from Florida State. I'm
Wilson, I mean,
not man, I can't remember his name right now. Michigan State transfer. Why am I blanking on this? But
oh, I cannot think of it right now either. I'd have to
But
go look at my
let's get a bunch of weapons. We bring in
yes.
somebody like Jameis Winston. Hey, I think we can have a winning year because I still want to, I still want to win, but maybe grab a quarterback that we can develop all of that. But like you brought up, man, like we need to have enough of a foundation to where we don't want to be in a situation like the Bears are in right now with Justin Fields. They kind of saved themselves by doing that trade with Carolina this past year, where now they're able to
Right.
get Caleb Williams. But their issue with Justin Fields is I think that he's, a decently talented quarterback. I don't want the Broncos to trade for him because one, contract extension, two, he doesn't play well from the pocket, but
Mhm.
they have him on a cheap contract, but they
Josh
don't have
Coleman.
enough of the infrastructure around him put in place to where they're able to see that that payoff of having a cheap quarterback, and
Right.
feel like we're kind of in the same situation right now.
Yeah, you got to get things, settled in house. Make sure everything's going well, like we talked about. And as right here, Coleman is the FSU wide receiver.
Yes.
Again, I really
Yeah.
would like a big bodied receiver for me personally. That's just something I feel like you're gonna have to say goodbye to Tim Patrick. I feel like it's been 2 injuries in a row. I remember seeing that injury when I was at camp, and it was so odd seeing it.
Yeah.
He came out of his route so slow, and then he just fell. And after the ACL, and I don't know, after the Achilles, then it's just a lot.
Yeah.
And the Broncos might have to say goodbye to him. Unfortunately, would love to see a restructure that would actually work out, but it's just not going to work out. Honestly, I feel like.
No, move on from him, move on from Judy. And honestly, it's like, guys, we saw Brandon Johnson over the last couple weeks. Are we really getting any different production from Jerry Judy than we get with Brandon Johnson or Will Jordan Humphrey? Like, let's bring in
Yeah,
another third round wide receiver or something that, again, I think that we can get
you
better
have
wide
Mims now.
receiver
Like
production. Yeah.
let's use
Yes.
Mims. Actually, get him on the field. Let's do some different things with these different concepts. Not be so much of a team where again it's one. It feels like it's one kind of read. It just felt so simplified. And Russell Wilson was going with the deep balls always. Again, for me, it was difficult. Watching this
Yes.
season. So I think you need that right quarterback who can do those different kind of things. But again, like we said, you need that roster to be supportive around it.
Yeah.
They did some good things this year, in terms of the defense. But again, we've seen it for them for years, honestly.
Totally. Totally. Hey, shout out to Prime Sports Media. Thank you
Thank you.
so much for the $4 super chat. We'll be doing a show here together here at sometime soon. I know that we got to wrap things up a little bit here in a few minutes.
Yeah, we got the national championship coming up.
But
yes,
I got a couple more questions for you. One is from Jay Pozo. What quarterback in the draft do you think looks the most like Drew Brees right now? Is there anybody?
I think that'd be Cam Ward. In terms of, again, I don't like I said, I feel like Cam Ward, when it comes to what he's going to do in the future, he's going to be a little bit more of. He's going to have to stay in the pocket. He's going to have to, again, kind of be. He's a little bit shorter than what I think most people think. For me, Cam Ward, I think is the closest guy I can think of right now, just off the top of my head. I'd like to say Pratt because he's someone who's a quarterback who's. In a pocket guy, those kind of things. But he's 6'3", 220, just different built than Brees.
Yes. Yeah.
Who do you got?
In terms of man, I don't know. I need to look more. And I need to go back and look at some Drew Brees tape and pay attention more to these guys' pocket presence. I'm not totally sure right now, but I do know, similar to you, life is easier, man, when you're taller. Ask the ladies, does size matter? Yes, it absolutely does. I don't want no 5'11" quarterback. I don't want nothing like that.
Yeah.
Give me a tall guy that can see the 6'3" and above. 6'2", maybe, if you're really, really good. But no 6'1" and below. I ain't a fan of it. But let's wrap this up.
And hand size matter too. We just have to say that really too. With these quarterbacks, I can't wait to see their hand size. I know that's weird, but that's what we need the combine for.
If you're Kenny Pickett and you got the same hand size as me, a red flag, man.
Yeah.
Red flag.
Keep going.
He loves to throw the ball. That's how I feel about it. Now, let's wrap this up by talking about this. I love Broncos country. Been a Broncos fan my whole life. But, I mean, Broncos country, we're crazy if we don't acknowledge the fact that we're an incredibly toxic fan base, okay? Yeah. We've wanted a competent head coach and offensive mastermind in here for the longest time. We trade the picks for Sean Payton. I feel like we're mainly okay with that.
Everyone was elated with the trade.
Everyone's elated, but I'm hearing already, Sean Payton's an egomaniac. Sean Payton is mean. He yelled at Russell Wilson. Sean Payton puts players in his doghouse. Sean Payton has it his way or the highway. Guys, you take away the Sean Payton name, you are describing our best coach of all time, which is Mike Shanahan. There really isn't much
Mike Shanahan was the GM. He made sure he was making the moves. Yes, he had a GM. He had someone over him, but he was the one really signing. He had someone else doing the logistics and making sure, the contracts and how they were done and structured. Yes. But it was Mike Shanahan who was saying, this is the guy I want. This is the guy I want. This is where I would be comfortable paying with them. That was exactly Mike Shanahan. And so for me, I don't want to hear he's mean, those kind of different things, because everyone was so elated again. And it's so crazy to me what Broncos country has these emotional roller coasters. I've heard, again, season 1 with Russell Wilson, you have people saying, I want to trade him after 5 games or something like that, and then figuring out how to get rid of him. And then you had those guys then say, defend him after the 5-game winning streak, and then they all of a sudden again, let's go back to getting rid of him. It seems to be with Broncos country now a little bit too much of this fighting going back and forth, and it just doesn't feel like a steady, just narrative.
We're closer to Cowboys fans than we want to acknowledge. That's really it, man. We are, there's a standard. We have Hall of Fame quarterbacks here, all of that. But at the end of the day, guys, we have had to suffer through how many people since Mike Shanahan? Josh McDaniels, John Fox, who do we have? Gary Kubiak hit, for a couple years, but we knew that was all short-term thing. Then we had Vance Joseph, we had Vic Fangio, we had Nate Hackett, and you guys are upset that we got a guy that's actually proven it. Let's give him a little bit of time to see what he can do.
Exactly. And like you're saying, for me, this really does feel like a Mike Shanahan kind of development kind of thing. I think they have a long-term plan. I think that's what they're developing. This isn't one of those things where it's just kind of, you're doing this off the top of your head, one week to 2 weeks. I really think that, again, let's just everyone calm down. you have some time away. All of a sudden, let's watch the Senior Bowl. Let's watch the championship. See the guys that you want. Start to, again, just have some fun. Do some mocks. Let's all just calm down and have some fun. Start talking about the players we want the Broncos to bring in terms of rookies. Let's see kind of some of those fun things and have a good time instead of always being at each other's throats. Because it feels like that to me. It's a hey, again, I don't want to see these kind of fights over quarterbacks. I want to see let's just have dialogue. Nice, fun dialogue.
Let's enjoy the journey. Like, again,
Yeah.
We have somebody who's competent. That's a lot more rare than people want to acknowledge. Again, I just named off all these coaches that we've had that have contributed to why this team is so devoid of talent. That's really it. Again, if the fact, again, if you look at this team compared to the Pittsburgh Steelers or the Houston Texans, in my opinion, it's not even a close competition between which teams you would take. It's those teams, over the Denver Broncos every single time. The fact that Sean Payton had us in this race, in this playoff race, is substantial. It is a great sign of improvement. Now let's see how we work this miserable cap and draft pick situation this year. But, he's going to have to get through it. We're paying him, well over $100 million.
Yeah.
Let's put up with this next season because I feel like it's gonna bring about some really good results here in the future.
I agree with you, and like you said, this ownership staff, this ownership in general, and the executives, they believe in his vision, and I think that's the biggest part. When you have your superiors believing in you, it changes everything.
Yes. Well, John, thank you so much for joining
me.
Let all the people know where to find you, what they can expect from you, and who you got winning tonight in the national championship.
So for me, I got Michigan. I've always been a Michigan fan. I hate Ohio State, so I got them. But if Washington wins, no different to me. I'd love it just because the Pac-12 goes out with a national championship. I think it's kind of hilarious, honestly, for me. And you guys can find me. I'm on Colorado Collegiate Focus. We do a show every Thursday at 7:00, looking to get Coach Payne on soon from the women's basketball team for Lady Buffs. So really excited to see if we can get her on. I know we have some contacts with her. So seeing for that, and you can find us there. We're at the MHRT network. So find us on YouTube, and my handle's right there.
I love it. Well, thanks again, John. Thanks again for everybody checking in. If you're watching the replay, hit that like. Let us know your thoughts on Sean Payton, the Broncos, what quarterbacks you'd like to see considered by the team. But till next time, guys, we'll see you later. And go Broncos. I'm done saying let's ride now. So go Broncos.